Everyone. Ready for a deep dive into the incredible world of AI?
Always.
I'm so excited about this one. We're going to be talking about how AI could revolutionize everything.
Literally everything.
Yeah, from healthcare to the global economy. For this deep dive, we've got excerpts from two really fascinating sources.
Oh, yeah.
The first one is Dario Amodei's Machines of Loving Grace, which was just published this month. And the second is an article called The Intelligence Age from September.
Both of those sound really promising.
Yeah, they both paint a really mind-blowing picture of what the future with AI could look like. We're talking about AI that could help us conquer diseases.
Maybe even double our lifespans.
Exactly, and potentially even lift developing countries out of poverty.
It's incredible to think about, you know?
It really is.
What I found striking is how both sources really emphasize the power of deep learning. You know, like how you get those eerily accurate recommendations on the Spotify or Netflix?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Or how doctors can use AI to detect diseases super early? That's deep learning in action. And both Amodei and that Intelligence Age article, they both agree that it's only going to get more powerful as we feed it more data and computing power.
It's like we've unlocked this secret code to intelligence, and now we're just starting to see its potential.
Totally.
Amodei even uses this really vivid analogy. He talks about powerful AI being like a country of geniuses in a data center.
Whoa.
It's a pretty wild thought, right?
That is wild. Amodei believes that AI could soon surpass human intelligence in a lot of areas. He imagines these AI systems that can work autonomously, solving complex problems across all kinds of different fields.
It's like having a team of the smartest people in the world.
Working 24/7.
Yeah, all dedicated to solving these huge problems that we've been struggling with for centuries.
He's basically saying that the breakthroughs that used to take decades or even centuries could happen in just a few years because of AI.
So accelerating progress.
Exactly. He calls it the compressed 21st century.
Okay, so let's unpack this compressed 21st century idea, especially in biology and health. Amodei is predicting some pretty incredible advancements, like eradicating infectious diseases. Can you imagine a world without the constant worry of pandemics?
I mean, it's certainly a bold prediction, but Amodei points to the incredible progress we've already made in the 20th century. Think about it. Life expectancy practically doubled in that time, just thanks to advances in medicine and public health.
That's true.
Amodei thinks AI could supercharge that progress, leading to breakthroughs we can barely even imagine today.
So we're talking about potentially eliminating things like cancer and Alzheimer's disease. That almost sounds too good to be true.
Well, it's important to remember that Amodei is cautiously optimistic. He's not saying these things are guaranteed to happen, but he does think they are possible. He even suggests that we might gain control over things like our weight, appearance, and even reproduction.
Wow.
He calls it biological freedom.
That's a pretty powerful concept, to have that level of control over our own biology. But what about the ethical implications of all this? I mean, if we can manipulate our genes to live longer or choose specific traits for our children, where do we draw the line?
Those are definitely questions that society will have to grapple with as these technologies advance. But maybe let's shift gears for a moment and talk about AI's potential impact on how we understand the brain and mental health.
Okay, so how could AI help us unlock the secrets of the mind?
Amodei argues that AI could revolutionize neuroscience in a few ways. It could speed up progress in areas like genetics, neural imaging, and computational modeling.
So instead of just observing the brain from the outside, we could actually start to understand how it works at a much deeper level.
Exactly. And that deeper understanding could lead to breakthroughs in treating and preventing mental illnesses. Amodei believes that conditions like depression, anxiety, and even schizophrenia could become a thing of the past.
That's incredible. Could you imagine a world where mental illness is no longer this debilitating force in people's lives?
Yeah, it'd be like lifting this huge weight off of humanity.
It would be transformative.
Totally. And Amodei goes even further. He suggests that AI could help us elevate the baseline human experience, making moments of joy, creativity, and fulfillment more common.
Like just by existing.
Well, in a way, yeah. Imagine a world where we could easily overcome things like procrastination, anxiety, or poor impulse control. What if we all had an AI that helps us be the best versions of ourselves?
Now that's a future I think we can all get behind. But before we get too carried away, let's talk about AI's potential impact on the global economy. It seems like this technology could either make existing inequalities even worse, or it could be a powerful tool for lifting people out of poverty.
It could go either way, for sure.
Which way do you think it's going to go?
That's a question that both Amodei and the intelligence age address, and it's one of the most important aspects of this whole discussion.
If we're talking about a future where AI can potentially cure diseases
Mm.
and boost economies, it's crucial to make sure those benefits are available to everyone.
Absolutely, and Amodei is very clear about this. He argues that we have a moral obligation to ensure that AI's benefits are distributed equitably.
So it's not just about technological progress, it's about using that progress to create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
Exactly. And Amodei sees AI as a potential game changer for developing countries, especially when it comes to healthcare and economic growth.
So how could AI actually help developing countries leapfrog ahead? It seems like they often lack the resources and infrastructure to keep up with all the latest technological advancements.
Well, that's where things get interesting. Amodei believes that AI could help overcome those limitations by enabling more efficient and targeted interventions. For example, AI could be used to improve disease surveillance and response systems, allowing healthcare workers to identify and contain outbreaks more effectively.
So it's like AI could act as a super-powered early warning system, helping to prevent pandemics before they even start.
That's one potential application. And when it comes to economic development, AI could be used to optimize resource allocation, improve infrastructure planning, even personalize educational programs.
It's like having an AI advisor helping governments make smarter decisions about everything,
Exactly.
from healthcare to education to infrastructure. Sounds like a pretty powerful tool for progress.
It does. But Amodei also acknowledges that AI's impact on economic development is complex and far from certain. There are many factors that could hinder its potential, including corruption, weak institutions, and resistance to change.
So even with the best AI in the world, there's still no guarantee that it will lead to positive outcomes if the underlying social and political conditions aren't right.
That's a really critical point. And Amodei even raises this interesting concern about what he calls the opt-out problem.
The opt-out problem. What's that?
It's the idea that even if we develop these amazing AI solutions for things like healthcare or poverty, some people might just, choose to reject those solutions. They might be distrustful of the technology, or maybe they have cultural or religious beliefs that conflict with its use.
That's a fascinating and kind of troubling thought. It's like having a cure for a disease, but people refusing to take the medicine.
Exactly.
It really highlights the importance of understanding the human side of technological progress.
Absolutely. We can't just assume that everyone will embrace AI with open arms. We need to be sensitive to people's concerns and make sure that these technologies are developed and deployed in a way that is both ethical and respectful of individual choices.
This has been a whirlwind tour of AI's potential, both its incredible promise and the complex challenges that come with it. We've covered a lot of ground already, but there's still so much more to explore.
We've only just scratched the surface. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve into even more fascinating topics, like AI's potential impact on peace and governance, the future of work in an AI-driven world, and ultimately, what all of this means for the future of humanity. So stay tuned, because things are about to get even more intriguing. Welcome back. We just explored how AI could revolutionize healthcare and boost global development. But now, let's shift our focus to how this powerful technology could impact...
Like world politics.
Exactly. Peace and governance. It's a complex area with both exciting opportunities.
And huge risks, I bet.
Yeah, for sure. Some pretty daunting risks.
Especially with Amodei warning about the dangers of powerful AI falling into the wrong hands. It's kind of unsettling to think about what an authoritarian regime could do with that kind of technology.
Yeah, no, Amodei is very clear about that threat. He argues that AI-powered authoritarianism is a scenario we absolutely need to avoid. He believes that democracies have a responsibility to lead the way in AI development, ensuring that it's used to promote freedom and human rights.
So it's not just about building the most advanced AI. It's about making sure it's aligned with democratic values. But how do we actually do that? Technology often seems to have a mind of its own, advancing at a pace that's hard to control.
Well, that's where Amodei proposes what he calls an entente strategy. He's basically calling for democracies to work together, kind of like a team, to shape the future of AI. They would collaborate on research, development, and even things like export controls to make sure that powerful AI doesn't end up in the hands of,
Bad actors.
Yeah, those who would use it for bad stuff.
So it's almost like a technological alliance of democracies. Kind of like NATO, but for AI.
Exactly.
I guess that makes sense. If we want to make sure AI is used for good, we need the good guys to be in charge.
That's the basic idea. Amodei believes that this kind of coordinated effort is essential to prevent AI from being used to.
Undermine democracy?
Yeah. undermine democratic values and institutions. He even envisions AI being used to actually help democracies defend themselves against disinformation campaigns and propaganda, ensuring that citizens have access to accurate information and diverse viewpoints.
It's so interesting. Like, AI could be used to fight back against those kinds of information wars.
Right.
It's like a digital shield against manipulation and censorship. But how would that actually work in practice? Wouldn't it be tricky to distinguish between legitimate efforts to counter propaganda and,
Yeah.
government censorship disguised as AI-powered content moderation?
Oh, absolutely. Those are definitely valid concerns. It's super important to make sure that any AI systems used in this way are transparent, accountable, and subject to democratic oversight.
Hmm.
We definitely don't want to create tools that could be easily abused by governments to silence dissent or control the flow of information.
Right. It's a delicate balance, for sure. But let's shift our attention inward for a moment. Amodei also talks about how AI could be used to strengthen democracies internally, not just externally. What does he have in mind there?
So, Amodei envisions AI being used to improve the efficiency and fairness of our legal and judicial systems. He suggests that AI could help judges make more impartial decisions, reduce backlogs in the courts, even personalize sentencing recommendations based on a more holistic understanding of each case.
So it's like having an AI assistant that helps judges see the bigger picture and make more informed decisions. That could potentially lead to a more just and equitable legal system. But I can also see how some people might be uncomfortable with that level of AI involvement in such sensitive areas.
For sure, there are definitely ethical considerations to be weighed. But Amodei argues that if these systems are designed and implemented carefully, with appropriate safeguards and human oversight, they could actually help to reduce bias and ensure that everyone has equal access to justice.
Makes sense. Amodei also talks about how AI could facilitate consensus building and conflict resolution. It's a bit hard to imagine how that would actually work in practice, especially given how polarized our political landscape is these days.
Yeah, it's a challenging area for sure. But Amodei envisions these AI tools that could help people understand different perspectives, identify areas of common ground, maybe even generate creative solutions to complex problems. It wouldn't replace human diplomacy or political negotiation, but it could provide valuable insights and help to bridge divides.
It's almost like having an AI mediator, helping us find common ground and work towards solutions that benefit everyone.
Right.
It's an intriguing idea. I'm not sure how optimistic I am about its chances of success in our current political climate, though.
It's certainly not a silver bullet, but Amodei believes that AI could at least provide some tools and frameworks that could help us move towards more constructive dialogue and collaboration.
It's definitely worth exploring.
Mhm.
But let's turn our attention now to a topic that I know a lot of people are worried about: the impact of AI on jobs.
Hmm.
If AI becomes as capable as Amodei predicts, isn't it inevitable that millions of people will lose their jobs?
That's a concern that both Amodei and the Intelligence Age article address head on. And while they acknowledge that AI will definitely significantly change the nature of work, they don't believe it'll necessarily lead to mass unemployment.
So they're not predicting a future where robots take all the jobs and humans are left with nothing to do.
Not exactly. Both sources emphasize that, at least in the short term, AI will primarily augment human capabilities, not replace them entirely. Think about it like this. Instead of eliminating jobs outright, AI will likely automate specific tasks within those jobs, freeing up humans to focus on the things that require uniquely human skills, like creativity, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence.
So it's more about AI working alongside us, not replacing us entirely. That's somewhat reassuring. But I still wonder what will happen in the long term when AI becomes even more advanced. What happens when AI can do everything better and cheaper than humans? Won't that inevitably lead to massive job losses?
It's a valid concern, and Amodei doesn't shy away from addressing it. He acknowledges that at some point, our current economic models might no longer make sense in a world where AI can perform most, if not all, of the tasks that humans currently do.
So what's the solution? Are we all destined to become economically obsolete?
Amodei suggests that we might need to rethink our entire approach to work and economic security. He floats the idea of a universal basic income, where everyone receives a guaranteed minimum income, regardless of whether they have a job or not. Or maybe we'll need to invent entirely new economic paradigms that we haven't even imagined yet.
That's a pretty radical idea. But I guess it makes sense if we're talking about a future where AI fundamentally changes the nature of work. It also raises a lot of questions. How would such a system be funded? What would happen to our sense of purpose and identity if work is no longer a central part of our lives?
Those are all big questions that society will need to grapple with as we navigate this uncharted territory. But Amodei believes that if we start planning now, we can create a future where everyone benefits from the advancements in AI, not just a select few.
It's a lot to process,
Hmm.
but it's a critically important conversation to have. We've covered a lot of ground today, from AI's potential to reshape global politics to its impact on the future of work. But there's one final question that looms large over all of this.
And that question is, what does the rise of powerful AI ultimately mean for the future of humanity?
That's the big one, isn't it? Join us in the final part of our deep dive as we try to answer that very question. Welcome back to our deep dive into AI. We've explored some pretty mind-blowing possibilities, from eradicating diseases to reshaping economies
Hmm.
and even rethinking the very nature of work. But now, in this final part, let's tackle the ultimate question. What does all of this mean for the future of humanity?
It is a question that's both exciting and kind of daunting, right? I mean, we're talking about a technology that could potentially reshape civilization as we know it.
It definitely feels like we're standing on the edge of something truly transformative. But is it a leap forward or a step into the unknown?
That's the question, isn't it?
Both Amodei and the intelligence age, they paint a pretty optimistic picture,
Yeah.
emphasizing AI's potential to solve some of humanity's biggest challenges.
Mm.
But they also acknowledge the risks, especially if AI falls into the wrong hands.
Right, or if it's developed without careful ethical considerations.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not a guaranteed utopia. Both sources really stress that the future with AI is not predetermined.
Oh, interesting.
It's a future that we have the power to shape, for better or worse. Our choices today, the decisions we make about how to develop and deploy this technology, that's what will determine whether AI becomes a force for good or a source of new problems.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we choose to use it. It's almost like we're holding this incredibly powerful tool, and we need to figure out how to wield it responsibly.
Exactly, and that's where human agency comes in. Both Amodei and the intelligence age emphasize how important human values are in guiding the development of AI. We need to think deeply about the kind of future we want to create, and then make sure that those values are reflected in the AI systems we build.
So it's not just about making AI smart, it's about making it ethical. But how do we actually do that? I mean, AI is such a complex technology,
Yeah.
and it's evolving so
It's
rapidly.
evolving incredibly fast.
How can we possibly ensure that it aligns with our values?
It's a huge challenge, there's no doubt. But there are a few key things we can focus on. First, we need to be crystal clear about the values we want to prioritize. Things like fairness, transparency, accountability, and human well-being. Then, we need to translate those values into concrete design principles and guidelines for AI development.
So it's almost like creating a set of ethical rules for AI,
Yeah.
like a moral code for machines. But isn't that a bit like trying to teach a computer to understand right and wrong? It seems like a pretty slippery slope.
It is tricky, but it's not impossible. There are emerging fields like AI ethics and AI safety that are specifically focused on developing these kinds of frameworks. And it's not just about programming AI with a set of rules, it's also about creating systems that are robust, reliable, and resistant to manipulation.
So we need to make sure that AI can't be easily hacked or used for malicious purposes. But even if we can solve those technical challenges, there's still the human factor to consider. What if people just ignore these ethical guidelines? What if they decide to use AI for their own selfish ends, regardless of the consequences?
That's a valid concern. And ultimately, no technology is foolproof. There's always the potential for misuse. But that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to raise awareness about the ethical implications of AI, and to build a broad consensus around the need for responsible development and deployment. It's not just a job for computer scientists and engineers. It's a societal challenge that requires input from everyone.
So we all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI. But even with the best intentions, it's still kind of scary to think about the potential consequences if things go wrong. I mean, we've all seen those dystopian sci-fi movies where AI turns against humanity. Is that a realistic scenario, or is that just Hollywood hype?
I think it's important to distinguish between science fiction and reality. While those scenarios make for good stories, they often rely on pretty far-fetched assumptions about AI's capabilities.
So we're probably not going to have to worry about killer robots taking over the world anytime soon.
Probably not, but that doesn't mean we should be complacent. Even if AI doesn't turn evil, there are still plenty of ways it could go wrong, especially if we're not careful about how we develop and deploy it. We need to be vigilant about things like bias, discrimination, and unintended consequences.
So it's not just about preventing AI from becoming malicious. It's about making sure it doesn't accidentally cause harm, even if its intentions are good.
Exactly. And that requires ongoing research, careful testing, and a willingness to adapt and learn as we go.
It sounds like navigating the intelligence age is going to be a pretty complex and challenging journey. But both of the sources we've explored today seem cautiously optimistic about the future. Amodei even talks about how the rise of powerful AI could be a profoundly moving experience for humanity. He envisions a future where we witness our long-held ideals materialize before our very eyes, a moment that could bring many to tears.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
It is.
The idea that we might be on the cusp of creating a world free from suffering, where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential. It's certainly a vision worth striving for.
It is, but it's also a vision that requires us to be thoughtful, responsible, and engaged. It's a future that we need to build together, with a clear understanding about the incredible opportunities and the potential pitfalls.
And that's where you, our listener, come in. What excites you most about the potential of AI? What concerns you? How do you think AI will shape your life in the years to come?
Those are questions that we all need to be asking ourselves. The future with AI is not predetermined. It's a future that we have the power to shape. So keep thinking, keep learning, and let's shape the future together.
That's it for our deep dive this week. But the conversation definitely doesn't end here. We encourage you to continue exploring these ideas and to engage in the ongoing dialogue about AI's role in our world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the intelligence age. Until next time.